Assalamu alaikum dear students and friends. This is Saqib Iqbal. Welcome on my YouTube channel Iqbal Biology. In this video lecture we are going to discuss about dipole-dipole interaction. That what is actually dipole-dipole interaction. But before discussing the definition of dipole-dipole interaction, you must have to know the structure of HCl, which is actually the example of the dipole-dipole interaction. After understanding the structure of the HCl in detail, we comes toward the definition of the dipole-dipole interaction, that what is actually dipole-dipole interaction. So if we see the structure of the HCl, so HCl is the structure which contain two different poles. One is the partial positive pole and one is the partial negative poles. Now why the question arises that why different poles are formed? It is just due to the difference found in the electronegativity. As we know very well that the electronegativity of the hydrogen is 2.1 while the electronegativity of chlorine is 3.0. So due to the difference found in their electronegativity, there must be the different poles are formed. So the atoms having the less electronegativity have partial positive, while the atom having more electronegativity have partial negative charge. Have partial negative is formed. Poles is formed. So if we study the structure of HCl in detail, so HCl is the structure which contains two poles. Two poles mean dipole. Di mean two. So if we see the structure of HCl, so this is actually the one polar molecule because it contains poles. This is actually the another polar molecule because this structure also contains the two different poles. So if this one polar molecule, so if this hydrogen, which is the partial positive, make attractive force or bond with this poles, with this negative partial negative poles of this another polar molecule, mean to say when the interaction which is formed between the partial positive pole of the one polar molecule with the partial negative of the another polar molecule, so this kind of interaction or the force is actually known as the dipole-dipole interaction. Now the question arises that why it is known as the dipole-dipole interaction. So because there is a two poles here found and the two poles here found, so there is a interaction which is formed between these dipole-dipole, so therefore it is known as the dipole-dipole interaction. So if we come toward the definition, so it is actually the attractive force between the positive pole. See, this is the positive pole of one polar molecule and the negative pole of the another polar molecule, and the negative pole, this is actually the negative pole of the HCl and the negative pole of the another polar molecule. So it is actually known as the dipole-dipole interaction. Now these are the polar molecules because they contain two poles, dipole. One is the partial positive, one is the partial negative polar. These are the examples of the dipole. So I have drawn only just the structure of HCl. You must have to know about the structure of H2O or H2S. So if we see the structure of HCl, so it is very small and it boil at minus 85.0 degrees Celsius. So if we see these force of attraction, this is actually a very weak force of attraction and it is breakdown when only 3.3 kilojoule per mole energy is required. So that's all about the today lecture. Okay, thanks a lot.